Each month, we focus on a different topic, share some resources with you, ask you some questions, and invite you to share with one another as well. And then see if there's anything else that you'd like to chat with. This is our Faith Formation Leader Connection, and just a way to reach out to all different kinds of faith formation leaders. So we welcome you as educators, as pastors, as CREs, as volunteers, elders, youth directors, youth leaders, all of the things, right? So many of you do faith formation in so many contexts. So thanks for being with us here today. So we're going to actually get started with our guest this morning as we talk about Advent. And so I'm going to welcome my colleague, Lee Cateau, and he is from Unbound. And this is a journal, let's see, Intersections of Justice and Faith. Is that right, Lee? Am I saying it right? He'll say it.
Yeah, that's good.
And he's going to tell us about their Advent study and some other great, cool things. Maybe you're aware of Unbound, maybe you're not, but you definitely should be. It's a great resource. So thanks, Lee, for popping in and being with us, and I'll let you talk about your stuff.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm Lee Cateau. I'm the editor of Unbound, and I'm also the website person and the graphic person. I am kind of a jack of all trades these days when it comes to Unbound. But one of the things that we are really proud of that Unbound kind of started to really live into a few years ago is our devotionals, and kind of taking the perspective and a lens of those who are on the margins and may or may not always have space to kind of commentate or talk about scripture or talk about Advent season or the Lent season or all these things we talk about in the liturgical calendar, may not have the opportunity to express those ideas and those views and those theologies that come along with that season. And so one of the things that Unbound has really been really intentional about is inviting different folks on the margins in kind of a thematic way to come together and express themselves through scripture and their own identities. And one of the ways we do that is by approaching a certain marginalized group, whether that be queer folk, whether that be our Native American or Indigenous siblings. We did a Lenten devotional this past year, all from our Native American and Indigenous siblings who speak into theology, Christian theologies, and speak into the Lenten season. And so that's kind of how we kind of do the work when it comes to devotionals. This year, and specifically, well, I'll start with a few years ago, we did a Advent devotional called Starry Black Night, which is a womanist Advent devotional, which centered Black women or Black identifying folk that don't identify as male. There were a few people on the Advent devotional that were non-binary. And so with that came a very womanist-centered way of viewing scripture, which is through the lens of Black women like Katie Geneva Cannon, who was a pioneer in womanist theology and identified as a Presbyterian and was a pillar in that community. And so taking kind of her legacy and building on top of it and centering the voices of Black women. And it was a very, very popular Advent devotional. It had won awards. It won awards in the publishing world and like the faith publishing world, which is kind of a small world. But it was a big deal. And so this year we decided to continue that legacy and do one of the first second editions of our devotionals. And we're doing another Starry Black Night, that's what it's called. And it will, and like I said, I am doing a lot. We don't have the landing page ready yet, but I did want to show you, if you're not familiar, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you the other the other devotional that this is going to be based off of. And then if everybody can see that, you can just nod. Can everybody see that? Good. So this was our first devotional, and this is also available in a PDF, but it's very, very simple. And the one this year will be the same exact kind of layout. So we have all of our devotionals that go up all the way until Epiphany, because I think sometimes we just see Advent and Christmas and then bam, we're done. But in fact, Christmas is a season, Epiphany is even a season, and we really wanted to live into what that might look like as we journey through all the seasons that sometimes get missed in the Advent mix. And so it's not just always leading up to Christmas, because in many traditions, Epiphany is celebrated even more so than Christmas is. And so we really wanted to highlight Epiphany and other holidays too. But just like this one, Another Starry Black Night will have a downloadable PDF version that can be printed however way you want to. We also had, with our social media companion on our social media platforms, a daily word reflection, which we always do. It's just a simple way to engage your communities with just a simple word, what that word brings up for them, how are they reflecting on that word for the day, and usually that is connected to the bigger reflection that begins the week. And then we always make an Advent calendar, because who doesn't like one? And it kind of keeps us on track. It doesn't have candy, it doesn't have chocolates, it's just a printout version. One day we'll have the ability to make maybe a little more interactive one in person. But as you can see, this is just kind of how all of our devotionals kind of lay out. It's very simple, which I'm a minimalist. Simple is better for me. And it's easy just to click on, get what you need, and read. And just from amazing people, not only in our denomination, but outside of our denomination. One of the things that Unbound is really intentional about is an ecumenical conversation. I think it's very important that we get a lot of perspectives from a lot of different folk. And a lot of people that we ask are in full communion with the PCUSA, and so they're kind of familiar with what we do. But in sometimes it's not. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that we can continue to have conversations in different ways with our ecumenical partners and friends. But I just wanted to show you how it's laid out. We also, if you go up on our website, there is a way to look at all the devotionals that we have. And so this is just to show you kind of like what other ones look like. This was our Lenten devotional from this past Lenten season. And so, yeah, it's just all kind of set up how it needs to be. And my computer's running very slow. I put it through a lot these days. But yeah, I'm going to stop sharing. And then I did want to show you a short video of the new, and I just saw a question, will this be available in PDF form before the Advent season? Yes. So it should be available 2 weeks before Advent. That's something that we're trying to be intentional about. And so 2 weeks before Advent actually happens, the devotion will be ready, everything will be up, and it'll be good. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. This new Advent devotional will feature our Presbyterian siblings, but it's also exciting that 2 of the leaders of the United Church of Christ, actually the leader and another one, have decided that they would also join in on this. And we're very, very excited to have that partnership with them. And so we all hope you download, engage, and again, follow our socials. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Just search Justice Unbound and it'll pop up, because we have a lot of interactions with the devotionals during the season. Many things are posting, and we always love to share, ask people to share those things. And so as time approaches, The landing page for the new Advent devotional will be created, and we'll make sure I'll send Stephanie and make sure Stephanie has the link and everybody can get that. But also justiceunbound.org, where you can find all of it. It's right there, pretty accessible. It's all free, which you can't beat that. So it's all free. Download as much as you want, share as much as you want. That's the one thing that we're also very intentional about with Unbound, is a lot of things are free. I always say that, you know, working in the national office, we all are very privileged people to be able to think about theology and think about things. And we're all very privileged to go to school and to study these things. And sometimes resources, specifically when it comes to religion, I remember buying books and being outraged at how much they cost. And so any way we can have accessible material for people that may not be as privileged as we are to spend time and to think and to think about some of these things, because, you know, people are just trying to live and trying to survive in a world that's very, very hard. And to make things accessible as possible is always important. But it's all there. It's all free. You can engage as much as you want with Unbound. I'll plug that we're doing a book study right now. Unbound also produces a podcast called A Matter of Faith. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and we'll be probably doing some Advent themed episodes there too. Yeah, so it's all on the website, and we hope you engage with it. But if you have any questions,
Yeah.
I'm here to ask.
Thanks, Lee. Hey, I wonder, do you have accessible to you? I know there's at least an image of the new Advent devotional that says who's going to contribute to it.
I'm gonna let me pull up the actually the video might be too short. Here, I'm going to open up these and then I'll share with you. Let's see. That is not what I wanted to do. Here we go. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so we have Mel Lowry, Carla Jones Brown, Bridget A. Green, who was in the publishing world in the Presbyterian Church, Brooke Scott, Chantel Hinton Heal, Paula Parker, Dartinia Hull, who is with Presbyterian Outlook, Siobhan Starling Lewis, who is one of our co-moderators of the PCUSA. Tracy Blackman is a United Church of Christ leader, and you might have seen her on television. She's been very involved in a lot of advocacy work throughout the country. Valerie Azumi and Amy Steele, Shawnee, who we love Shawnee, and Karen Georgia Thompson, who is our equivalent of like a stated clerk. She is that for the United Church of Christ, which we're very excited to have her a part of this series. And so it's exciting that we have such great people wanting to join the work in Unbound. But all the images will look similar. So when you see it, this is what it kind of will be talking about during that. But yeah.
Great, thank you. Any questions out there for Lee? If you want to unmute, you can ask, or you can put stuff in the chat. We do a wakelet for these calls, which means that, you know, we can always update it. And so we will change the link in the wakelet that you'll receive today when there's the landing page for this devotional. And am I understanding correctly, Lee, that so you're doing the season of Advent plus Epiphany and in this one as well? Okay.
Yeah, so we'll go to Advent through Christmas, and then we'll end it with Epiphany. Yep.
Okay. Well, really appreciate you sharing, and I encourage everyone to check out these devotionals plus a lot of the others. There's usually a series for, you know, Lent, Advent, Pride. Is that a normal thing every year that you do?
Oh yeah. So last year, well, the year before last, we decided that, so we did a queer Lenten series, and it got a lot of comments, both not good and very, very positive. And so we we learned, and as a queer person myself, I've always known that and I did my studies in queer theology, where when I went to Vanderbilt, that was my thesis. And so knowing that that is not something that is of the norm in a lot of church spaces and a lot of theological conversations, we decided that each summer we would have a Queering the Bible series and somebody was like, well, why would you do it every summer? And I was like, well, why not? And so we are querying the Bible every summer. We did Mark first, which we did that because it's short, and it's my favorite book of the Bible. And then this summer we queered the prophets, which was an amazing experience. We even invited a queer rabbi on the series and did a commentary on the book of Jonah. And it was very powerful, and people had a great reaction to it too. And so I think one of the things that I think is important, especially in resourcing and with the work of Unbound, is not necessarily how we normalize a lot of liberation theologies, which queer theology can run under, and womanist theologies and things like that, but how we can integrate those things into our theologies that we kind of always go to. I remember in divinity school, we read not just Calvin, not just a lot of Presbyterian theology by a lot of men, a lot of white men. We really were integrated in a lot of different theologies from a lot of different perspectives. And I think having that as a default, having that as something that comes as a natural way, the more we integrate it into our work and the more we integrate it into our lives and how we study theology, I think the better. And so Unbound is kind of trying to do so, being an option to integrate a lot of different ways of experiencing theologies and experiencing God from very, very different experiences than what we're used to. So it's always going to be that way. Unbound will be that space. And so if you need that in your resourcing, or you need that in your churches or wherever you are, Unbound is kind of that place to go find that, because we really want to live into that even more so. So yeah. And those who are disabled or disability theology is also something that we focused on one Lenten series. And so it was also very well received too.
Thank you. So much great stuff. I can say that my community of friends that have nothing to do with the Presbyterian Church that I'm involved with, there's a strong LGBTQIA community within my community, and all unchurched, all, have very, very bad experiences with the church. So the queering the Bible piece has been helpful to me when they ask questions about my work and, if I hate them and what, like really, it's been just a very helpful piece. So thank you, Lee, for continuing to do that, because even when it's not on the season, I know I can go through the journal and find something and share it. So
yeah.
Stephanie, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm assuming these resources that you're talking about are for adults and maybe potentially older teens. Is there any plan to offer anything for younger teens, or is the focus really just for adults, which is fine?
There is. A lot of our readership is young adults, but I am also having some conversations as to what maybe Unbound can kind of delve into the Bible school realm. I've had a lot of conversations with people that really yearn for an affordable, more progressive and inclusive vacation Bible school curriculums and what that might look like. I do also know that Unbound, right now we are in the process of accepting applications to be a part of our creative team, which is a team of young folk who will come together and have conversations about content, have conversations about what is needed within the faith realm. And some of that may include, asking our younger folk if they want to also take up space within Unbound, which I think would be very, very powerful. So those conversations are had, and the application, if you know young people out there who are writers, who like to create content, who do all those things, you can go on the landing page on Unbound, and at the menu bar, it has the application to be a part of our creative team. That application process closes October the 1st. It's not an intensive thing. But it does involve 3 meetings a year, 2 of which are virtual, and 1 will be like a retreat type thing. It'll be at least 6 people that can come together and kind of be that creative realm. Because right now, though a lot of people do help Unbound, I am kind of the only staff person for it. And so we're trying to integrate how to create a sustainable model that will also not just be me. And it would also represent a lot more diversity within the body of the church. And so, yes, I do see a lot more stuff coming for or created by, and I think that's important too. I think for me, it is providing space for younger folk to create themselves and what they might want to see and what they might want to create and put out there. And so we're trying to figure out a way to kind of create that space and kind of consolidate and, try to figure out what that might look like. Because I do think empowering young folk to write or to have ideas that then come to fruition is also very, very powerful. So what that might look like, I think, is all up in the air right now. But I think, yeah, it's going to be, we do hope for that.
Yeah. I think what Lee doesn't know yet, but he will soon, is that through our Lilly grant for Christian parenting there's a portion of that grant. We received a $1.25 million grant from the Lilly Endowment that will be focused on Presbyterian Mission Agency and PCUSA internal resources and how we can help our areas expand out if they're looking to create more for children and youth specifically, and especially, that sort of thing. So we're just starting those conversations and hope. And so I'm encouraged by that, Lee, and maybe we can talk soon about how the funding can maybe help that process. So yeah. I mean, so much of what we produce in the mission agency is adult focused, right? And so, but there's an opportunity to expand that. Yeah.
And I think it is important to, I think, for all of us to figure out ways that, I mean, we always talk, and I am considered young and I'm 35. I'm not young anymore. But at the same time, it's, how do we empower young folk who want to speak into things and to help them actually speak into it? Because we always kind of talk about young people instead of young people maybe sometimes being able to express themselves for themselves. Sometimes we do need to talk about young people, but I think there's a lot of conversations that with Unbound is how do we facilitate that in ways that, are creative. And that's one thing that is important too, is the creativity behind it all. So yeah, if y'all have ideas, you can email me, lee.cato@pcusa.org. If you know of anybody who would want to apply for the creative team, pass along the website, and we'll read their application.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Great stuff that you're sharing with us today. And we'll look for the new study to come out and get that loaded onto our Wakelet. So
awesome. Thanks. Well, thank you all for inviting me.
Absolutely. Okay, so what I'm going to move towards just briefly is to show you our resource list for Advent, and then we'll move into a time of sharing and hearing from you what questions you might have, what you're planning on doing. I think this space, particularly when we're talking about Advent, is a fun space to hear what others have done. But I want to make sure you're aware of the link that we'll share with you today. So this is what we call our Wakelets. Well, we don't call them that. They are called that. They're a platform that we can put together resources. When we're done with this call, we do put it up on our landing page for the Faith Formation Leader Network, and we can add to it as new things come along. So with a Wakelet, you can go down the page and you can go across. Of course, my screen is cranky about that right now because of all the things I have open. There we go. So there's different categories, different ideas, curriculums and studies, resources, devotionals. And we've got stuff from the PCUSA. We've got stuff from our ecumenical partners. The PCUSA store, they just released their Advent collection of books and whatnot in one spot. So if you go to this link, you're going to see sort of a collection of everything that they've got open for you. There are some things that you can purchase. For instance, Gen On has their Advent, Christmas, and Epiphany Living in Faith Together pieces. I know lots of folks turn to Illustrated Ministries during Advent, and what's great about them is they're able to offer up images and stickers and things like that that are diverse and show not blonde Jesus. You know, when you go to regular Advent stuff on Google, which I know none of you would do, but I know that you've got folks in your church that might do that and come to you with something. We love Illustrated Ministries because they can offer some really simple pieces just to send home for that. So even if you're not using all of their things, that is helpful even to get the stickers. We've got the Justice Unbound Starry Black Night original there, and then we will add here. Here's an Advent for families, and then Sanctified Art is always a great one as well too, that I'm sure many of you have taken a look at. So those are the pieces that you will have in this Wakelet, and I'm pretty sure Janet is going to put that link to these in the chat. And like I said, this updates, so you can always go back and check on that. Stop share there. That will go into our chat of resources. And now I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So as you're thinking about Advent this year, where are you at? What are you thinking about? Is there anybody that would like to share a theme that you're doing? A word that you're using? Maybe we could all put in chat, you know, some names of themes that you might be using just to kind of get the creative juices flowing. So sharing what you're doing, and then if you came to here to figure that out, what questions might you have for the group? There's a pretty good group assembled here today, and I bet we can brainstorm some things. So who might want to share with us today? I like expect the unexpected. Thanks, Jasmine. All right, Andrea, what resources would be good for teens and adults to do together? I think that, yeah, if you're just talking about teens and not children, a lot of the resources, well, certainly the Unbound resources, those devotionals I think would be appropriate for teens and adults, as well as some of the things that we showed in our Wakelet. Who has some other ideas about teens and adults working together? Y'all are going to do this to me today, aren't you? Okay, Tom, you're up.
Because we're friends, I feel guilt. I must say something.
I know. Thank you.
So we do a couple things. I'm sure most of you do an Advent workshop program, but we try to get, for the craft side of it, we try to encourage different age groups to make different crafts that they think would work for the bigger group. And so we started pretty early with our Sunday school classrooms to get kids to think about things that really help them bring forth the themes that we use. And the Advent Workshop ends up for us being a very intergenerational kind of program. We also invite all of the groups to come up with songs and stuff like that. And so we see it as a great bonding time that continues also because after we do that in the morning, we frequently get together in intergenerational groups to go caroling. And so that's another like simple thing we're doing. But I'm here to hear everybody else's ideas.
I'm sure. Yeah. I will go ahead and share some things that were my favorites for the intergenerational Advent workshop type model. One of the most participated ones that I ever did was bringing in your creches to have. So we did a large display of different creches for the season of Advent. And that was, there are especially some of our older members that collect many different kinds of creches, right? They have tons to share. And then we used those as table centerpieces for an intergenerational event where we could do some story sharing about them. And then kind of a fun, chaotic piece that we did with that is during children's sermons for the 4 weeks of Advent, focusing on a different character, different figure of the creche scene each week. You were invited to bring just that piece forward. So then by the end of Advent, we had this like gigantic scene with Lego ones and, you know, all just these kind of like great big diverse set of figurines. So that was always a really fun ways to do. And that wasn't, you know, focused on a craft. So I think somebody asked about, is there something that's not just crafts? But yeah, that was a way to include something that wasn't that. Caroling, I think too, though, Tom, is people want to carol at Christmas time and they, you know, they don't want to sing Advent hymns. They want to sing Christmas carols and they want to, you know, so that's a great way to involve everybody.
If you do that, sometimes you can use, if you make crafts or things at the Advent Workshop or earlier, you can actually bring it to those who are homebound or unable to come. And really that's been, we'll have our kids and families sometimes write notes and people love it. It's pretty simple, but it works.
Yeah. And again, I think that a lot of this works with youth. I've done various Advent wreath workshops, different ones, you know, different kinds of Advent wreaths, not just the greenery, but we've done, you know, ones that were a spiral, and there's a lot of different an Advent garden, like a little potted one. Did that for Lent and Advent too. So anything that can be a centerpiece at home, you know, during the season. So others.
One thing we did for a while, and I think we might go back to it, it just takes work, is we wrote our own Advent devotional. And families would be encouraged to write, to take one of the days. The youth group would take one of the days. Those were the most meaningful. It's just a lot of work getting everybody to turn it in by the deadline. But so we've had different themes. So thinking that maybe to go back to that again, but that was something that different families and groups would take on.
Thanks, Carol. Other ideas? I'm going to start calling on those of you that I know have done Advent stuff. Becky, I'm looking at you.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's interesting. So I came partially because we need to rethink our Christmas pageant. But as I think about Advent events that have worked really well for us in the past, one of my favorite was doing a La Posadas and using different rooms in the Ed building to have small groups of families or intergenerational kind of travel through and hear the different stories and do a shared meal. And so I always really enjoyed sort of the movement of that. You know, you get people around and talking, and we used to have youth, I think, would sort of be the shepherds who would take people. So I love the intergenerational aspects and just a sort of a different way to explore the story.
Yeah, posadas are a great piece. My daughter and my daughter's in-laws are Catholic, so posadas are a large part of their home faith life. And I don't know, I just wonder about if we think about how folks can do things in their own context, what kind of resources can we provide to do something like that with their own communities, with their own friends, their own family, and not necessarily come to the church to do it. But now they do posadas from December, and then like they go into February because they haven't hit like all the family members yet. So they just keep going and going and going and going. But certainly a rich piece of their faith life. Other intergenerational ideas. Laura.
One Wednesday night, we have Wednesday night Bible study and supper. And usually the youth go off and do something, but once a month we do something. But it's Advent, we all stay together the whole Advent season. And one of the favorite activities from as 4 years old up to 104 is Advent bingo. And I got it off of a Catholic website, and it literally is bingo, and it's the answers in the squares to the questions. So some moderator is reading it, and when someone gets bingo, which because of the crowd, you end up maybe with 2 people with bingo, there's bags like the lunch sacks of prizes, and we have a table for adults and a table for children. And the adults might have a seasonal tea towel from Dollar Tree in it, and the children's might have a candy cane tube of M&Ms, you know, or a scented candle, and it may even be things you've got at your house that have been gifted to you that you're regifting. So, you know, people get really creative going through the house and stuff, and they bring them in the week before, and we just staple them into these bags. So everything looks the same. It's not like, oh, that package is pretty. But when they get bingo, they get to get a package. And I mean, they just love it. I mean, they go, I get a little crazy sometimes, the kids do, but even the adults say me. So, yeah. And you also learn, it's like, how many Sundays are in Advent? Yeah, 4. It's 4 on your bingo thing. You know, oh, wait, yeah, oh, there it is. Cover it, you know. And it's even goes into some of the Catholic saints and stuff, which I have to kind of explain, but that's okay. Knowledge is powerful, but it's a fun night. It really is.
Yeah, I think bingo is like always a hit, and games in general and playing together is always a way to form intergenerational relationships. It, you know, pretty simple is the name of the game here. It's just really getting the generations together to interact with each other and not necessarily have to come away with some new theological perspective. But yeah, thank you. I wonder if could be a little bit more reformed sort of version of that created somehow, right? I'm sure something's out there. Becky, you mentioned you're here to talk about Christmas pageants.
Yeah, so I would love to hear people's ideas. So we, like many others, our numbers have gone down for a number of reasons, but we used to do a bit of an extravaganza And then, during pandemic, kind of took a break, had a children's story, focused one where we got copyright permission and used the Julie Vivas, the Nativity, which uses the King James language, really well received. Last year we did something that was not as well received. We kind of want to go back to children and youth being involved in the telling of the story. And I just wonder what people do. If anyone has a brilliant idea, you'll be my hero.
I just think you can't go wrong with the no rehearse pageant. I just never had a bad year with that. And I did choose older children and youth to be narrators, and they did get the stuff about a week before, right? So I wrote the script and worked with other adult volunteers and nursery workers to bring in the kids all at the appropriate time, and the mass mayhem of choosing costumes when they got to church 20 minutes before the service, and if I was lucky, all of those things. But in order to sort of give a little bit extra oomph to our older kids and our youth, picking them out and giving them a part to narrate about a week or so, 2 weeks in advance, was kind of how I managed both ends of that.
And do you have a shareable script, Stephanie Fritz?
I need to get that from Molly. I will get that, actually. I meant to email the person that took my job, had a little, chaos when I left and forgot to grab it. So I'm going to get that, and I'll put it in a Google and put it in the Wakelet.
Thank you. And thanks, Julie. I see you're sharing Teresa Cho's, which I will definitely take a peek at as well. Thanks.
Yeah, and I started with Teresa Cho's, and then over the years, I just refined and refined and refined the script of it. And when I first came to my church, it was after church, like we'd have real church, and then that little pageant would be after. And so by the time I left, it was the worship service, the whole thing. And so the offering was done when the wise men were being visited and the toddlers were bringing up gifts, and that's the offering time. And so we were able to utilize the whole service by then. But others with Christmas pageants of the like, or an intergenerational piece?
So
I'm going to have Jen go, and then I'll have Tom go.
We have a community dinner that we do every week at our church that anyone in the community can come to. It's usually about 80 people there. We did an intergenerational event. We have like the hanging of the greens at our church, and they kind of decorate the church for the season. But during that, we had stations set up to make like, I want to say 4 or 6, I can't remember, different Christmas ornaments. So, everything was set up and people could just walk up and make as many ornaments as they wanted, each one, or if they liked one, they could make multiples. But we made the ornaments for the guests that at the community meal. And that was a big hit. People like that, and liked being able to give those out to the guests of the meal.
Yeah, and service, that brings up a great point too, is how do we incorporate service into our Advent season? Because that is also a great intergenerational piece.
I was going to share too, we did someone had mentioned having everyone write a devotional. We did that one year, and yes, it's crazy trying to pull it all together, but it was really neat. Everyone loved it. We had, I was going to share, we had a couple people, instead of writing a devotion, they shared a coloring page to put in there too, which I thought was a nice piece to add to it. So I wanted to share that.
Awesome, thanks. How about you, Tom?
Well, to Becky's question about pageants, the one thing I would tell you that we were surprised about a year ago, because we used to have we still do have a large pageant, but we actually put a sign in the front yard that said it was a community pageant and anybody was welcomed the 2 Tuesdays before, and then we do it Sunday during church. And we probably picked up a third of our pageant that way,
Oh,
which was
wow.
very surprising. But there is something I think that draws moms and dads back to the church, and that idea of being part of a pageant probably mattered. I would say we only picked up 1 or 2 kids from that, but we're going to do it again this year, and we're excited about it. We have our confirmands and high schoolers read the script and be part of the choir, and so it's not intergenerational in the sense that adults aren't part of it, but all other ages are part of it, and it's kind of become a fun thing.
Nice. I did find that a lot of grandparents, especially in the congregation, wanted their grandkids and something to come on No Rehearse Pageant Day. And then these poor kids would show up and they were like, I am not doing that. Like, you want me to do what? And who are these people? So we started passing out star wands that blinked, I would buy. And so then and made it perfectly clear they could dress up as whatever they wanted and stay in their seat and never have to come forward. So they could, wave the wands from their seat or just never, because that happened a ton. All these grandparents were like, oh, yay, let's do this. And yeah. Jasmine.
Yeah, similarly to that, last year, I used the book ABCs of Christmas, or I found a script online or something like that too. And so it was during like a 5 p.m. Christmas Eve, but they had the stars. They could either be as stars, and they had to listen for keywords when they would wave it around. There were angels, they had little halos, and then I think I gave them sheep. So there was some shepherds. So they just listened for their keywords. I think the sheep had little bells on them too. So just having, as ABCs, I think A was for Advent, B is for Bethlehem, and you just tell the story, but you have that interaction while they're in their seats.
Got it. Yeah, star wands, they're like, the toy, and they turn on and they blink, and, you can buy them, I think, on Amazon in packs of like 10 or 20. Google star wands into Amazon, you'll find them. Let's see. Virginia asks about an advanced group for adults that has done the typical studies you find at Advent. So obviously that was kind of Lee's point in being here today with the Unbound. Anybody else have some more advanced adult studies that they could share about? Julie suggests Names for the Messiah from Brueggemann. And I think that PCUSA store link in the Wakelet is going to give you a really comprehensive list of some different things. And I feel like you're going to be able to find something there.
People were mentioning devotions. One year people can be intimidated about if you say, write a devotion for us, you go to, and so we went to people and said, we want you to write a memory, a story, a tradition about your childhood, your life. And part of it was sharing your life. And they put, they had to submit a picture, photograph. Some of them had a couple of them, but there were stories. Sometimes people shared recipes, traditional things in their family, but it was a great way. You felt like you were getting to know, everyone felt like they were getting to know other people in the congregation. And I did the scripture, a scripture each day and just a brief prayer at the end of it. So it was more connecting, also with that.
I love that, Julie. Thank you. I think, I've seen that before where people are sharing a tradition. That seems a lot less intimidating than writing a devotional. How many of you all also recognize, that the Advent season, the holiday season is not great for a lot of people, and do some things around, you know, the solstice, Blue Christmas, you know, calls various things. How do y'all handle that piece? Does anybody have a specific way that you've acknowledged especially hard times? I know one church I served, the Stephen Ministry team would do a special service around that time, a service of healing, wholeness. Over the years, that transformed a bit where they would do it for the community. It's been done in retirement centers or assisted living facilities, especially for folks that are losing people. But I think, and I've also seen it as just opening up the church for the labyrinth as well. Becky put midweek contemplative worship service too.